So, sonoluminescence, there's a website you can visit. Isn't there always? Yeah, Al. Well, I guess what I'm sort of saying is that once you have the concept of nanotechnology, then you see that drugs and prosthesis or computers or tools are categorically migrating toward each other. You've probably heard me say, the only difference between computers and drugs is that one is too large to swallow. And our best people are working on that very problem. I think that from the middle of the 19th century on, without really much drugs to help them along, I mean, a little ether, a little hashish, poets and artists in Europe were obsessed with synesthesia. There's a wonderful New Yorker cartoon, maybe some of you saw it. A bunch of guys in suits are sitting around what is obviously a corporate boardroom, and in the background there's a profit and loss chart, and it's clearly headed into hell. And the chairman of the board is saying to a small smiling man sitting at the other end of the table, "You're right, Higgins. A deliberate disordering of the senses worked for Rimbaud, but would it work for us?" So this is a reference to a symbolist poet of the 19th century, and the belief that we need to erase the boundaries between the senses and create a synesthesic, a hallucinogenic, a psychedelic, if you will, reality. I mean, the late 19th century, the pre-Raphaelites, the Jugendstil impulse, that was all like, they could smell psychedelics in the air of the future. They couldn't quite get high, but they were definitely bird-dogging in the right direction. So, the trick, if we're going to design our own states of mind, is to make sure that we don't dump the baby out with the bathwater. We want the net to be as haunted as possible. We don't want to lose its atavistic connections back into the darker recesses and resources of the unconscious. That's why Bill Gibson's novel Neuromancer is so prescient, because here it is, this super technological fantasy, but at the center of the net, the gods of voodoo are reappearing. And I came to the realization, thinking about the internet, the other is within us. When the other finally, if it ever, comes into full manifestation, it won't come in mile-wide ships of titanium that position themselves over the Secretariat building of the UN. It won't come like that. It will come out of human hands and human dreams. It will be fully other. I'm not copping out here. It will be fully other, but it can only be built through us. This addresses what I was beginning to get at last night when I talked about non-local information. The alien is real, but the alien is not here in the stupid sense. The alien can only manifest itself through us. But this probably means that given a sufficiently resilient technology, it can manifest completely through us. So, in a sense, the internet is a kind of landing pad. There has always been in our fantasies of extraterrestrial contact the notion of the pad, which has to be built for them. And people claim it's the Nazca lines and all, it's an archetype, the idea of the prepared space that awaits the arrival of the other. But now because of the nature of the internet, because you can't see who's coding, you can almost imagine that we're calling the thing forth. And I think it will probably appear as a website. And, when it's sorted out, you'll realize, my God, http://zeta-reticuli.org is really coming from Zeta Reticuli, but through virtual, through non-local Baumian space. Yeah. It's totally separate in the sense that it is somewhere else in the universe and evolving completely along its own lines and not in any way under our control. But then you turn the coin over and the division between it and us is completely seamless because of the non-local nature of information. In other words, this is an incredibly empowering idea, if true. I mean, it will make a revolution in psychology that few people have yet even sensed coming. What we're talking about here is putting the Jungian idea of the collective unconscious, first expanding it to the size of the cosmos, and then showing with physics exactly how the trick is done. So we are not separate from any place. Obviously, when you evolve inside an animal body, localized in space and time, you get a hellacious set of reflexes and muscles designed to deal with immediate threat in the environment. But at the core of the oyster is, this portal into universalism, which we have denigrated to what we call the imagination. There is a third eye. The third eye exists, but it doesn't look out at this world. You've got two perfectly good eyes for doing that. The third eye looks out at the holographic matrix of informational totality. And then the problem for that form of perception is filtering.
Would you say that another word, you use the word?
Well, Atman means soul or being, or yes. I mean, it's simply that consciousness is distributed and holographic, and nobody has their brand on it. What we have been calling human consciousness is the only consciousness there is. It's something you tap into, not something you evolve out of yourself. I mean, you require a local language to create a local model of this universal input. If your local language is insufficient, then you abide in a domain of intuition. And that's what I would call animal consciousness. It's a domain of intuition of being. Animals intuit being. But given a more advanced nervous system, a more advanced cultural toolkit, the intuition changes into a direct perception. And you begin to make poetry and experience loss and feel love, and you begin to feel the emotional outlines of the enterprise of being, and how far one can go into that. I assume it's infinite, or at least appears infinite from our limited position. Well, the local language is a necessary compromise. It's interesting. The thing that makes psychedelics so central to a discussion like this is they are the only thing which pulls the plug on the illusion created by local language. That's why people are both in love with it and terrified of it, because it addresses a fundamental aspect of reality, and it addresses it incontrovertibly.